Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rogue Patriot. Here we talk about the historical context of U.S. news and current events to gain a deeper understanding of these issues. This is not a right-wing show or a left-wing show. Although we provide political commentary, we are just very patriotic moderates. Do you love your country but don't agree with everything your party is doing? Do you hate it when people in political parties claim their opinions alone will be the sole savior of the country? If so, this show is for you. Help us, the moderate constitutionalists, take the word patriot back. And we are back with another discussion episode for you, and we've got a frickin' whopper for this one.
Yeah, so today we're going to kind of touch base on some homeland security topics. One being an article that discussed a nurse named Dawn Wooten, who reported unnecessary hysterectomies on immigrant women, which after that, her job, she was demoted and her hours were cut, which should have been protected under the Whistleblower Protection Act. Something else that the article discusses is that Brian Murphy said he was told to assess that terrorists were more at the southern borders, and that's where they were entering, and not to emphasize findings of Russian involvement in the election. So you have a few points here, but the overall point is to discuss that Trump is, since the Senate's not approving who he's trying to appoint as the acting Homeland Security Secretary, as well as the acting Deputy Secretary under him, Trump just keeps putting in these acting ones instead of actually getting someone appointed.
Yeah, and this is a multi-layered story because you can follow how the moral corruption has started from the top of these agencies and is trickling down. So, first of all, the accusations that Dawn Wooten has come forth with on the whistleblower complaint that she filed, which I think is pretty recent news as of when we are recording this. I have a feeling by the time this comes out, it's going to already have been played on all the major news outlets and stuff, because this is a huge story. But the report that unnecessary hysterectomies are being performed in mass on uninformed and not consenting migrant women that are being detained in these facilities is insane. This is stuff that, like what China does with the Uyghur Muslims, where they're sterilizing people that look different than them. It's absolutely unbelievable. But when you start going back up the chain and you see that the people running the Department of Homeland Security, but then also the individual divisions like immigrations and custom enforcement, none of those people have been they've not been confirmed by the Senate. They're all just these acting appointments. You know, when moral rot starts at the top of institutions, and whether that's a small business or Walmart or the federal government, that's how it works.
Yeah, and Trump just seems very, to me, when you just keep having an active secretary and you won't get one that the Senate will approve to be appointed to be the secretary, it just seems like a really crooked thing to do, because obviously you're trying to get these certain people in, and they're not doing a good job. And Trump seems to have a history of either trying to appoint people or have them the active or acting rather secretaries that if they don't, as soon as someone doesn't give him his way, he's firing them. So he tries to get all these people that just, I mean, like we said earlier, suck his dick, and that's the ones he wants, that gives him his way instead of someone who's actually good at the job.
Yeah, and this is really something that has been written about and publicized for the past maybe 2 years or so of his presidency, where anybody who was not just an empty suit following commands has been purged from his administration.
Exactly.
Because there were a handful of people when he first started, not all of them, probably not even half of them, but there were a few really good people that he had brought in as secretaries of various things. But none of them could put up with him, I guess, or for whatever reason they wound up leaving.
Yeah, they
or
probably
getting fired.
just disagreed with him on something, and that's the ones that ended up getting fired. Yeah, I mean, he said it before, and we've talked about this on other podcasts, where he feels he's entitled to something.
Yeah.
And so if you have someone who is already saying themselves that they feel they're entitled to something like a third term or something, you're going to have them not keep good people in office, because good people are going to stand up for what is better for the country.
Right.
And if they're going to stand up to him and say, hey, this isn't a good idea, he's going to fire him right off the bat because he is an entitled brat.
Yeah, and this goes back to because this is the Rogue Patriot, and we talk about, current events through the lens of American history. The biggest point to mention here is, and I really want anybody who is one of these so-called patriots to listen to this, the appointments clause, where it came from, that presidents have to get their appointments confirmed by the Senate, is verbatim, word for word in the Constitution. And I looked it up just for you. It is it is Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the Constitution, that who the president confirms for, let's see, the president shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, which means the confirmation of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States. Okay, so that's pretty black and white. Mm-hmm. That is arguably more black and white than the Second Amendment. Okay? Yeah. It says officers of the United States have to be appointed by the Senate, or with advice and consent of the Senate. That's how what they called it then. And so that obviously is not being done here, because none of the people he wants to run these departments can make it through the Republican-controlled Senate.
Yeah.
And where did this come from? Well, it came from what I just said. He can't get any of his people through, but also the Federal Vacancies Act, or Federal Vacancies Reform Act, is what allowed presidents to fill gaps between appointments with these acting secretaries.
Yeah.
And it's also not just going to be the person at the top, like the Constitution says, all officers of the United States. So in many cases, the deputy secretaries also have to be confirmed by the Senate, and sometimes the undersecretaries do. The hierarchy of these federal departments is really weird. So there's like secretaries, deputy secretaries, undersecretaries, assistant undersecretaries. It's really crazy. It's really crazy. There's a lot of people working in those departments. Mm-hmm. But so what happens now, and the Vacancies Reform Act was passed in like 1998. It hasn't been around a very long time. So this is, I think, one of the first bastardizations we're seeing of this. But what happens now is basically nobody has to be confirmed by the Senate anymore. And every now and then, Trump's acting secretaries will be rotated because he'll get mad and fire them, or they'll get mad and quit, or
and he's
whatever.
Just to confirm, he's the first one that has had an acting secretary for this long, rotating them instead of getting one appointed.
He had the record for the longest ones like a year and a half ago. Nobody else used it like this. And now, in fairness, it's only been around for two other presidents plus 2 years of Bill Clinton. So it hasn't been around very long.
I think
either.
We can all agree, we can all see what the intentions of that would be. If you're trying to dodge getting someone approved through the Senate and you just keep rotating them or just having an acting secretary, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
your intent isn't the best.
Well, he said that. And I mean, he said that it's just a lot easier to do it this way. Well,
for you to get your way. It's easier for
exactly.
you to get your way. It's not that it's an easier process, or it's easy for the citizens, or it's easy for the Senate or anybody else. It's just easy for him to get his way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely shafting the American people, and apparently now migrants is a lot easier.
Yeah. So okay, back to immigrants at Homeland Security. So you have this mass hysterectomies being done.
Yes.
And
according to this whistleblower complaint.
Yeah. Okay. What is who or what facility is this ran by? Like normally we have, federal government overseeing these I don't know if you want to call them prisons, but
detention centers is what they call it.
Detention centers. Okay, prisons.
Yeah. Yep.
So you usually have the federal government running these. So what's up with that? Like, is the federal government just sucking at their job, or is it contracted out, or what?
So in this instance, so whistleblower reports are usually not immediately made public. So I don't think we have, at least I couldn't find like the line by line of this person's complaint, but the facility that it was being done, that where these accusations are coming from, is called the Irwin County Detention Center in Osceola, Georgia, which is run by a private company called, I think, LaSalle Corrections or LaSalle Corrections. And they also operate facilities in 3 other states, but it is a private prison contractor.
So,
and they hold federal inmates as well.
Yeah. So this private, contracted private prison company, what are they known for? Like, what have they? I don't want to say what have they accomplished, but
So I don't know much about this private prison contractor in particular, other than they've been sued before for wrongful inmate deaths, and I mean, look, private prison contractors are a filthy business, and they always have accusations of all kinds of things, because the whole point of having a private prison contractor is this company says, hey, I can house all these inmates cheaper than you can, government. Give me the contract. So what's their whole mission? Cutting every cost humanly possible.
Yeah,
right.
Which is not going to, because I mean, I know people are like, oh, well, it's a prison. They're just prisoners, but it's still human life. And then when people are trying to cut corners and just make the big bucks, you're definitely going to see some decline in how they are treating human life.
Right. And you don't get to be a first world country, and let alone the leader of the first world countries, by treating people like dogs, even if they're inmates.
Well, Obama got rid of the private contractors during his time as president.
He ended every private prison contract, and it was only a few years before he left office. But one of the first things that Trump did when he came in is start them back up again. And private prison contractors are some big money businesses. A few of them have stock tickers. They're on the stock market. These are big money people. They put a ton of money into lobbying the federal government too for more contracts and more prisons. And just a little fun fact, guess who's one of the lobbies that always pushes against marijuana legalization?
It's going to be
private prisons. Yeah, because who goes to jail more than people carrying around weed?
Yeah.
Nobody. So there you go. So it's not surprising that a private prison contractor would be involved in mass human rights offenses happening to anybody, inmates or otherwise.
Nothing's being done about it because they won't.
Not yet. Now, this is breaking news, so we'll see where this goes. I mean, depending on...
I know. I'm saying as of yet, nothing has been done about it. And you've had all these immigrants treated horrifically, honestly. I mean, I don't care if they're immigrants. They're human beings. And one thing that I did want to say is I'm not really sure where the term immigrants or someone being an immigrant is seen as an enemy, because I mean we are, well, maybe not us because we were born here, but our ancestors were immigrants. It's how they came to this country, and somehow over time, if you're not a white immigrant, it's different if you came from Scotland, Germany. I mean, nothing said about those immigrants coming over here. And there were still immigrants coming over here not that long ago. So it's from like Scotland, Germany and stuff.
Right, in mass. Yeah.
In mass. And and it's nothing's seen bad about that. It's okay as long as it's a white person. But somehow over time, being an immigrant became a negative thing, mainly if you're someone of color. And I don't really understand that because, I mean, America was built to provide a place for people to escape to that was free, where you had more freedom and you had more protection.
Sure was. Another founding constitutional principle, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. And yet we are kind of, I don't want to say forced, but it's like they try to brainwash you into seeing immigrants as a bad idea.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you allow some immigrants to come over, it's like, and Republicans are really bad about this, they act like the whole country is going to be taken over by these third world countries or these immigrants or whatever, and they're going to bring their bad with them. Well, for one, they're trying to escape from that bad. And they're trying to get in a better place to live. But it's not as if some spaceship's going to come and pull up everyone from other countries and dump them in the United States. And all of a sudden, the United States is full.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people that still love their country and they want to stay in Europe. They want to stay in Iraq or Africa or wherever their country is. Not everybody wants to come to America. Stop being an arrogant son of a bitch with that, first off. And second off... No, I'm serious. Second off, I don't understand how your family they were able to be here in America and reap the benefits and everything, but they started as immigrants, but your blind ass is going to judge someone else for being an immigrant. I don't understand how it became a negative thing to want to come to America and to try to prevent people that right and that freedom and provide them with the means to a more beautiful life.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it has started in two places, though. One of them is the lie that, or just the mischaracterization that the more immigrants coming over, the fewer jobs there are for actual Americans. And that's just, to me, is absolute nonsense because it grows the economy as a whole the more workers that there are.
Yeah, and make it easier for them to become a citizen. So that's a job for an American because now they're an American.
Now they're a citizen.
So, so there's that. And it's also that idea.
Don't you get smart with me.
Yeah, there's also that idea that as soon as an immigrant crosses that border, they're handed a food stamp card and welfare check and all that. And the thing is, speaking as someone who knew or knows people that they had relatives that have been trying to become a citizens for years. I'm talking 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Trying to work their ass off to become a citizen and they love this country. Like they really love this country and they work hard and they don't, this person, one in particular I'm talking about, doesn't even get food stamps, doesn't get any handouts. And they still haven't got approved.
No.
So, and they've been living here. They've been putting their work into America. And the thing is, like, and I don't want to sound racist when I say this, but if you look at people like, you know how they're like, oh, well, you usually have the immigrants doing construction work and lawn care, and they're usually referring to Hispanics. And the thing is, well, it's very nice that you're like, oh, we work too hard and they shouldn't be given these handouts. Well, I see you're sitting at your office job, or even if you're a mechanic or whatever you say, you know, to keep your hands looking like this so hers can look like that or whatever as an American. But then you have these immigrants that are out there working their asses off on landscape and construction and all that because everyone I've known has worked their ass off. They didn't get a bunch of handouts. Now, I'm not saying they didn't get paid under the table, but I'm just saying that they're not lazy people. It's like people have this view of immigrants that they come over here, get handed a food stamp card, get handed some welfare, some assisted living, and then they sit on a couch all day watching TV.
And just bleed off the system.
Yeah, and that's not how it is.
No, and even if it was, don't give me this... oh, the reason is because the system can't support it, so we shouldn't let so many people in. Well, change the system. Like, if there is an issue where we are running out of Social Security money because too many immigrants are claiming Social Security, then we need to change Social Security.
Well,
I mean,
also,
this is like, these
if
are
they're
not...
a citizen, they're able to work.
Right, and pay into it.
And pay
in the first
into
place.
it. Exactly.
Yeah, the amount of lost tax revenue on people who have to work under the table because they're not legal now is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing is, don't sit here and act like you're a saint when you haven't had to live in these immigrants' shoes. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like the
It
hard
is
life
crazy.
that they've had and stuff. When you don't know that,
Yeah.
and you've had it too good to understand why they would want to escape that and come to America, when your ancestors did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing they did. And I know you're probably telling yourself, well, mine had to get away from a really bad situation. Yeah, well, so do these people. And just because it's not important to you doesn't mean that these people aren't going to try to get away from it and better their lives.
Yeah, I mean, we're the number one country in terms of economic wealth and like the number third or fourth in terms of population. And there is a big gap between us and number two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have plenty of room to be welcoming of people. That doesn't mean that we should be stupid about it, obviously, but I don't think, well, the only people who are really suggesting, I think, a dumb idea are the people that are they're people that are in the Democratic Party and they're playing to the super left and they're like, abolish all immigrations and customs. We need to have complete open borders. That is a dumb argument.
Yeah.
Because we have to have some kind of control to make sure that there aren't hardened criminals passing in through the borders without impunity. We have to make sure that drug traffickers and major cartels aren't getting it any easier for them than it should be, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And the people really that are the people in government that are voting, I mean, there's no bill, but the people that are vouching for open borders, rather, they know that they're full of shit. They know that they're just playing to the base, because if you're in government, you know that would not work.
Yeah.
But there's a huge difference between that and then even what Trump said he was going to do when he became president, which was quote unquote extreme vetting, where everybody that comes through and gets a green card or citizenship is just really, really checked out to make sure they're good. We're not even getting that. I mean, his people have pumped the brakes so hard on immigration. What do you think is going to happen when you do that? Illegal immigration is going to go up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane.
It's also a bad habit of what I'm going to call American arrogance, is just thinking that you and your country's better and it's too good for someone else to have the same benefits
I mean,
as
because
you do. Because you're just too good and your country's too good. It's just a horrible way to be.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, we both changed regions recently. We moved within the past few years to a much more diverse area. And the area that we're in now is so much cooler. And that's been the story of my life, period. The areas that I've lived in that have been more diverse have been cooler to be in.
Yeah.
Because there's just more stuff going on. There's more different people around. And it's not just all the same.
Well, you experience different kind of lifestyles. Like what people, just how their life is. And it's, that's not a bad thing. A lot of people are intimidated by that too. Like if your way of living is different from mine just by a little, they get really intimidated by that.
Yeah.
They don't like it.
I do think that this is another case of the people on the extremes of the spectrum here wind up ruling the conversation, because I think a lot of people are welcoming and are fine with immigration, but in the government there are a lot of extremists for sure on both ends. And what happens is you get people like these acting secretaries who are given a job, which is, at least empirically, it seems to be that they were told, make immigration as hard as possible, make it as rough as possible, so that people who try to come here illegally will not want to come back here ever again.
And also fudge your findings, like having to really
and fudge
lie
findings.
on what you're finding.
And that is actually a separate whistleblower complaint that was submitted at about the same time from the acting undersecretary for Intelligence and Analysis.
Yeah. But the thing is, this seems to be a pattern with Trump as president, and Republicans seem to be fine with it, that he's getting a lot of numbers fudged and a lot of, statistics and findings, and he's having people fudge a lot of it. I mean, look at COVID-19. He's having the, what do you call it?
The CDC?
Not the CDC. My mind went blank. Health and safety.
Health and Human Services?
Yes.
HHS, yeah.
Yes, sorry, I could not think. But no, that, he was having them fudge the number. Well, he has been fudging the numbers.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But the thing is if you wanted the true numbers, why'd you not just leave it to the CDC?
Yeah.
If you wanted to, no, he had someone else take over, that he had more control over it, because the CDC is more serious about their job and getting actual numbers out there, because that's their
And
passion, it's
they're
their
further
career.
down the line.
Yeah, so they want the real statistics out there. That's their job. It's the center of disease control. And no, Trump's going to have it given to someone who doesn't mind fudging the numbers a little to not make it look as bad, because his people don't think the virus is real or as bad as they're saying it is. And he doesn't need his people to see how bad the virus is. He needs the numbers to match with what his people want. And he's really bad about that. That seems, and that's the same thing in this case, where he's telling people to not emphasize on this finding, and then on this one that it's actually less, we need you to emphasize more. And he's really bad about that. And it shocks me that Republicans are okay with that, especially when, Republican, they're, what they say on social media and everything is that Democrats love to lie and stuff like that. But yet they're fine with their president obviously fudging the shit out of stuff.
Yeah. Top spokesperson for HHS just resigned this week too. So there's something brewing over there as well. Yeah. One thing that this reminds me of is something that I think I heard originally from the former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, talking about how to maintain civility through the military, maintain civility amongst a bunch of trained killers. Mm-hmm. And his point was, he was talking about the My Lai massacre in the Vietnam War, which is when it wasn't a regiment, one platoon or one company of soldiers went into the My Lai village and massacred everybody. They killed women and children. They burned everything down. It was a brutal event. It was one of the worst stains on the U.S. military, because it was just unbelievably inhumane, and it was awful. And this was a village that didn't have any aggressors in it. There were no combatants in this village.
Oh wow!
And so the point that Jocko made was that in the Vietnam War, because that war was so difficult to figure out who was winning, the Department of Defense decided that it would be a good idea that whoever out of the different battalions that were engaged had the highest kill count, they were doing the most good, and they were winning the war the best just by having the highest kill count.
That's a lovely idea.
Yeah, sure is. I wish I could remember the name of the person who made that decision. But anyway, so what happens then? You get a lot of soldiers just killing people indeterminately, because they're being told, to win, to do a good job, we need you to kill as many people as possible. And guess what happens? They kill as many people as possible. So what Jocko was talking about was, to avoid these situations, to maintain civility, you have to be extremely, extremely strict with human rights protection. So you've got to make your soldiers not just go 51% over the line of you need to make sure all your ducks are in a row, you're not making any accidents. No, you need them to go way, way above and beyond, because that will preserve the humanity of your enemy in your soldiers' eyes. Because you can't forget, as a soldier, that the people you are fighting are also humans. Well, what's happening now? The people that are at the top of Homeland Security and of Immigration and Customs are working off of a xenophobic or intolerance-based agenda, and we are seeing the humanity of migrants in the eyes of Immigration and Customs and Homeland Security go down. So these people are being treated more and more like animals and less like people. Well, when that happens, just like in the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, all kinds of crazy shit starts going on, because all of a sudden the basic civil norms that you would think all people would treat each other with, especially people in positions of power, are gone. Yeah. They fly out the window, because not only is it your boss now doesn't care whether you treat them well, your boss likes it when you don't treat them well.
Yeah.
And when you make examples of people and make sure that they never want to come back. And actually, just another example on that same post, this really frustrated a lot of people in the military. There was a special operations guy named Eddie Gallagher who was court-martialed and found guilty of some pretty bad things. He was caught like urinating on corpses and people in the Middle East, and also he like cut somebody's head off or stabbed somebody with a knife and took pictures of him. He would indiscriminately shoot at civilians and stuff. It was crazy. I might have the specifics wrong on that a little bit. It's been a while since I've read it. Trump pardoned him.
Of course, it
first time. That was the first time that somebody in the military was convicted of human rights offenses like that and then pardoned by the U.S. president, because you cannot let things like that slide, because when you do, it trickles down to everybody, because they will follow the example you set. Yeah.
And the hypocrisy in that is also when you are allowing that on your own soul and by your own soldiers and so forth, you are being hypocritical when your reasoning for joining a war in some third world country is because of how their dictator or whatever is treating their citizens so poorly and being so inhumane. And then you're setting up your base there and getting you're getting your military power there. That's why you're doing it. But you're telling, your citizens, you're telling the Americans that, we need to go over there because, their citizens are being treated so inhumanely and it's just such an evil, horrible thing. And you pull on them heartstrings and then you're allowing it on your own turf by your own people. They're being just as inhumane as these animals that you're discussing on other turf. But you've got your military there now, which is your overall goal. But I'm just saying the hypocrisy is very obvious. And another thing that just kind of screams hypocrisy is everyone I've talked to on the Republican side has been so happy that Trump is just trying to buckle down on immigration and stuff. But the one thing is, his wife was an immigrant. And not only was she an immigrant, she didn't do the fucking work.
No,
she swayed her pretty little hips and flipped her hair. I mean, I don't think she's that pretty, but she's not ugly, but people say she's gorgeous. Okay, so she is. And you know what?
Trump loves those Eastern Bloc girls, man.
Yeah, but you know what? He fucks them and he marries them and he gives them a green card. That's what they did. She didn't even do the work that these other immigrants are trying to do, that all these people are saying are just wanting a handout. What about your president? Yeah. What about his wife? Do you think she didn't want a handout? Quite a few million, I'd say, by the way, because I think she's living very pretty right now. And she didn't do any of the work. She was an immigrant. So our first lady was an immigrant. Not her ancestors like ours were an immigrant. She herself has been an immigrant. So he is not against immigration, as he makes everyone, all of his hot-headed followers think. He's not against immigration. It's hypocritical of him.
Very selective.
It's very selective. Yeah. I don't think he's against it at all, really. I don't even think it's a selective thing. I think it's just he went through the list of what do Republicans hate, what do they like. Okay, I'm going to play on that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I really don't think he's against immigration. It's just really easy for him to just spew hate at a subject. And since he's rich anyway and he doesn't really have much to lose, it doesn't matter what he fights for or against. He can play either side. Yep. He could have ran for a Democrat president, in my opinion.
Me too.
And he would have played all of those pretty as well.
Yep.
Because it doesn't matter. He just wanted office.
Yeah.
He wanted that power. And I think he's more of trying to be a dictator. And I think that's all he cares about is that power. I think he's an entitled brat that wants the power. And that's all he cares about. And I think when Republicans definitely turn a blind eye to him, because all you have to do is look at his past. All you have to do is, with the immigrants, look at his wife, and it shows he's not against it. Because you can't say, oh, well, his wife, they got married, so it's fine. So all the immigrants just need to marry someone here? Because I guarantee the Republicans would say something about that as well. So just open your eyes. Call a duck a duck.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these issues where we tackle so many issues like this. One of the underlying themes is becoming hypocrisy, which I think works well for us. But this will be another in a long list of possibly defining moments of the Trump administration. And if he actually does something positive with these whistleblower allegations, that would be awesome. And he could prove a whole lot of people wrong by doing that.
I don't think he is.
I don't
no.
think that's going to happen.
No, he doesn't have to.
The only thing, a year ago, it definitely wouldn't have happened. But the only thing that might change that now is the election. Yeah. But even then, I don't think so, unless this issue really, really blows up, which it should. I mean, the Democrats might really make it a sticking point, but they're so bad at it. They are so bad at sticking stuff to him that he could shoot somebody in Fifth Ave, just like he said, middle of Fifth Avenue, and the Democrats still wouldn't be able to impeach him for it.
Yeah, and that's I definitely agree with that, but
and this is one thing that the whole cracking down on immigration issue. Good Lord, I can't talk. It was nonsense anyway, because the Obama administration deported more people every year than any other administration before. And it was starting at year number 1, he deported like twice as many people as Bush had. He
probably also did it humanely as well, but he's not going to get credit for that. I do not remember human rights allegations like this for sure. Yeah. Now, that said, like you said, call a duck a duck. He might not have had any human rights offenses there, but I'll be damned, a lot of innocent people died from drone strikes under Obama. 95% of the people killed were not who they were trying to kill with drone strikes. Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on where you want to find the good, find the bad.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that was awful, and I bitched about it then, and I'll continue bitching about it because that's not. Yeah. Acceptable.
Well, I didn't like Obama either. So and that's something everybody on this podcast I don't like any of them. So
yeah, that's the thing. I think this show's really for you if you don't like any of them.
Yeah,
because we go back and forth. I mean, there's good things and bad things, and about all of them
on both sides. But I think, excuse me, I think Trump has been the most. I'm trying to think of not a really bad way of saying this. He's been the biggest asshole, in my opinion, which I know Republicans see that as a good thing. They're like, yeah, he'll stick it to him. No, I just mean piece of shit asshole. Not like the asshole you want to hang out with because they know how to fight someone or they know how to make you laugh and they're an asshole, but you love them. No, I just mean he's an orange toupee wearing asshole. Yeah. That I wouldn't even wipe my ass with.
He's definitely been.
I wouldn't.
He's been the biggest asshole of our lifetimes for sure.
He's definitely a piece of shit. And he's very crooked. He's very two-faced. And I don't like two-faced people. I don't like liars. I don't like people that don't stand their ground with who they actually are. And I'll go back to the baseball cap wearing thing. Nobody's seen him wearing a baseball cap. As soon as all these little country hicks Republicans voting for him, he got an American flag baseball cap on. He has not ever worn that in his life. That is to fit in with you dumbass followers. I'm sorry. It is. It's the same thing with him taking a picture with the Bible. He ain't never picked up no Bible except to take a picture with it to get followers. It's the same thing with this. He ain't never hated immigration or put anything towards it except help spread his immigrant wife's legs open so he can get some of that and then hand her a green card in the place of it. So that's all I'm saying. So he's very, the thing is, he doesn't really, and I don't even know if I can call him two-faced because he doesn't hide who he is. It's all there. Yeah. But he knows whatever he says and whatever he presents, his followers are just like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. They're just not very smart with him. And he knows he can play on their dumbasses.
And these human rights offense allegations, nobody has the moral justification to let that slide, period. Yeah. And same exact thing with the drone strikes under Obama. That does not exist. There is no justification for saying, oh, actually, we ripped the uteruses out of a bunch of women who couldn't speak our language, so they probably didn't really know what was going on or how that was going to work. There's no way to make that okay.
Yeah, they didn't want it, but I think people will make it okay because exactly, and this is having talked to extremists, they will say, well, they shouldn't have tried coming on our land. take the punishment. You shouldn't have been here. And it's like, well, they're not reaping the benefits of being on the land. They're in a fucking prison.
Yeah, and for like 40 years, maybe longer, I don't know. It was this way until a few months ago or maybe a year ago. If you wanted to become a U.S. citizen, you could come here to request that. You could do that. That was okay. You could come if you wanted to, if you were an asylum seeker, because there was a million reasons to seek asylum. But like if somebody was trying to kill you in your home country, or if there was genocide or whatever, violent gangs in your home country, and you wanted to come as an asylum seeker to the United States, you could come to the United States, step one, and then step two, request that status. So that was changed, I believe, by the same guys who are these current acting secretaries. And so there is a legitimate reason for people to come here first before doing those things. And if that's only been changed for a little while, you can't exactly blame the people who, from El Salvador or Somalia or somewhere, like, oh, well, they didn't know. So yeah, let's rip their uterus out. First of all, let's not rip anybody's uterus out for any reason ever, unless they ask for it.
Yeah, and let's not sit here on the Republican side and be against abortion, but then take the woman's rights to be able to have a child if you want to be pro-life.
Yeah, because
that is her body, and if you want a hysterectomy, fine, whatever. But don't preach about abortion being wrong, and then it's okay for someone else to make the decision if a woman's uterus is removed or whatever.
And on top of that, the Republicans in Congress have felt very strongly about China forcibly sterilizing the Uyghur Muslims in mass in detention camps.
Yeah.
And they felt very strongly about that. So if this issue is not treated with similar regard, oh my God, somebody needs to vote these freaking people out of office.
Yep.
That's not acceptable.
Yeah. And I know we're running a little bit short on time because this one's getting a little bit long, but one thing that I just also want to say about immigrants is that I see with the Republican side is they are very no immigrants whatsoever. But if someone from Israel comes over or something, it seems to be very accepted. Or all these other countries don't need help, but if Israel needs help, then we need to help them. And and having, again, grown up around more Republicans, the reasoning I always heard, I'm not saying all Republicans, but the reasoning I always heard is that's God's chosen people. That's God's chosen people. So we should, okay, either you're against immigrants or you're not.
Yeah.
Being God's chosen people doesn't change that. I am not saying anything about, Israelis. I'm not saying anything about God's chosen people themselves. Like, I'm sure they don't even care. They're probably like, no, I'm just going to stay in my country. They're probably like that.
They're very patriotic in Israel.
Yeah,
that's for
exactly.
Damn sure.
Yeah, true. But I'm just saying, don't sit here and say it's okay for them to come over here, but not someone else as an immigrant.
Oh, no.
And don't sit here and say that we shouldn't help other countries that are having a hard time, but every time Israel wants to fucking throw a bomb at Pakistan or whatever, or Pakistan wants to play ping pong, with a fucking nuke or whatever with them, I don't know what their fucking deal is, but they can't fucking figure it out. They haven't been able to figure it out for years, and yet everybody thinks that on the Republican side that the United States should jump in and just help Israel because it's God's chosen people. Yeah, as God's chosen people, you need to have fucking sense to handle your own damn war.
Yeah, and you can't make.
I'm not saying we shouldn't help Israel. I'm just saying if you're going to say it about other countries, stop the double standards, stop the two-face, stop the hypocrisy.
Right, because first of all, you can't build immigration policy on that. But second of all,
yeah, sure you can, because it's having God in the pledge and God in in our schools. And again, this is why you don't mix church and state. You don't mix religion with politics. And again, that's me being. I believe in God. I believe you should serve Him, and I like that He's in our pledge. I like having Him in school systems. I like that. That is my preference, but it's not my political American view.
Yeah, when it's used to be bigoted against other people, that kind of.
Well, I just don't think Jesus would do that. I don't. If you're going to be a bigot, you don't mention Jesus' name, and don't say in Jesus' name I pray, amen, because you ain't doing nothing in Jesus' name. Yeah, Jesus was kind-hearted and loving, and that if anybody wants to, email in and try to prove me wrong on that, that's claiming they're Christian or whatever, you're a dumbass, because Jesus wouldn't have done that. Jesus would have helped immigrants. Jesus would not be doing mass hysterectomies on women that were not wanting it or not knowing what was happening to them. Jesus wouldn't do any of that. So if you're going to stand by your Christian Republican views, make sure you actually look towards what would Jesus do. The old 90s, 80s, 90s bracelets. Go see if you can find that in an old underwear drawer somewhere and try to think on that for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that we're uncovering in a lot of different areas now that equality, especially racial and ethnic equality, is more in the conversation. Sometimes too much in the conversation, whatever. But one thing we're finding is there are all these second layer systems that are very prejudicial. So I'm not saying this is the case, but let's just say for a minute that the majority of the people in these detention centers that are being held, whether they came in the country illegally and are in the process of being deported, because they've been here for a long time, or because they just walked over the border and they are in the process of being deported, or they're being held for some other reason. Let's say that the detention centers are full of people who have done that have walked here or come here by land. Who would that be most prejudiced against? There's only 2 countries that we share a border with in the United States. Mm-hmm. And there's only one continent that really could walk or drive to the United States. And they're all Hispanic. Mm-hmm. So now there is a component, and a lot of people blow this off. And I'm not saying that you should make major policy decisions based on this fact, but you shouldn't write it off either. If we have a system that treats walking, or I think they call them land migration instead of air or sea migration, like they do with passports. If we have a system that treats land migrants worse than other migrants, then that's not just, that system sucks worse. It's that system discriminates against Hispanic people worse, because there's only I don't know if everybody knows this, but everything south of the southern U.S. border is Hispanic. And there's a lot of countries down there.
I think they know that. I think that's why they want so much border control.
Yeah, maybe. So that's how that would work. So let's say that these detention centers are primarily full of people who are walking migrants, and these detention centers are accidentally yanking the uteruses out of a bunch of women who can't really speak the language and don't know anything about the country. Well, then that is ethnically prejudiced against Hispanic people. Mm-hmm. It just is. It doesn't matter if it was started that way or not. If it was conceived to be that way, that is not relevant. What's relevant is how it is right now. And that is such an unbelievably heinous accusation that, man, there has got to be something done on this. And if there isn't, then we're going to see the United Nations probably deal with something like this, and the World Health Organization. There's going to be other groups of countries that are going to come out against this, and maybe even form resolutions against the U.S., which I don't think has ever been done before, because this is just so cruel.
Yeah.
It's awful. This is, I guess, a breaking story. We haven't done a breaking story yet. That's kind of exciting. So, if only it was over something a little nicer. But we will provide updates as more maybe come out on this story the later we get in time. And we'll see how the politicians handle this. And once they've had a few days to actually respond, I saw that Nancy Pelosi put out some statement on that. I don't really put too much weight in anything that she says, but we'll see. We will see and talk about how this is received by politicians. And I'm sure we'll come back with more stories of hypocrisy, because that just seems to be the trend of American politics.
Of course.
So anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Also rate and review us there. We post these shows in full, as well as other content such as check it out, Stories from the Week, on our YouTube channel, The Rogue Patriot. Also, you can contact us at the Rogue Patriot Podcast at gmail.com. You can send us topics, questions, or anything else there. And until next time, we will see you later. Thank you for listening.